Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. You might notice that I look a little different to how I usually appear in my videos, and there is a reason for that. I wasn't actually planning on making this video, but I got a few comments on my last video about a comment that I made that biphobia isn't real. And I wanted to just discuss with you guys what I meant by that, why I think that, and just have a wider conversation about it. Now, there was one comment that did understand my point on why biphobia isn't real, but a lot of the comments ranged from just disagreeing with me to even saying that I was harmful as a bisexual person, saying that biphobia isn't real. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, the first thing that I will say is that biphobia, in my perception, just doesn't meet a certain criteria that I would expect of other phobias. For example, when we think of homophobia, transphobia, and even racism, they reach a certain threshold to where people have actually been persecuted based on these innate characteristics. And anything that you can attribute to biphobia or being persecuted for being bi can just come under homophobia plainly. Now, transphobia is a little bit of a different one because there are some cultures historically that did revere trans people and held them up on a higher pedestal as some kind of oracle or guide. So, excusing that one for just now, we've seen that people who experience homophobia have been ostracized from society. They have been actively persecuted, killed, harmed because they are homosexuals. Anything that bi people have been through has been a result of homophobia, not biphobia. I know there are going to be some people that listen to what I'm saying and they are going to say that bisexuals still face discrimination based on the fact that they are bi. And I would say to you that the majority of discrimination that they face falls into two categories. It either falls into homophobia or it falls into dating preferences. Personally, when I'm talking about dating preferences, I do not include that as discriminatory because dating within itself is discriminatory. You are judging everyone based on every characteristic, and I trust the individual person's lived experience to say what's best for them. Additionally, sexual attraction is innate and cannot be forcibly changed. I never want to pressure someone into getting into a sexual relationship with someone that they are not fully comfortable with. I never want to pressure anyone into any type of sex. So if someone says that they do not fully feel comfortable being in a relationship with a bi person, I believe them. And I don't necessarily feel like I should force them to open up their dating pool to bi people, since it is a very sensitive topic. But with that being said, I'm going to open up the conversation a little bit more on this point. So there are various reasons why someone may discriminate certain types of people from their dating pool. And we can even think about if you do not think that a certain person's facial characteristic, whether that be a nose, let's say, is attractive, that nose may fall onto various different races, but it could also occur more commonly in one race. So one person might say you are therefore racist for not adding that nose to your dating pool because that nose is attributed to that race. The reality of it is, if there was a person of that race who didn't have that nose, you might open up your dating pool to them. Now, I understand that I'm being very shallow in this example. I'm just trying to give you an example of how someone might discriminate their dating pool with it not being actively towards someone's race, ethnicity, or otherwise. It would therefore, you could assume that that person is not racist, they just do not like that nose. Now, we can look at why someone might actually discriminate on someone based on their race. And the reason that I'm bringing up race is because it falls into one of those higher distinctions of prejudice against them, like homophobia or transphobia, but race is just the easiest one to use my example with, right? What I'll say is there are many reasons why someone might discriminate against dating someone based on their race, some being religion, some being family values, family pressures, and others being that they might just have a really traumatic experience with someone of that race. That doesn't necessarily mean that they hold that prejudice against other people of that race, but they just don't want to date them due to some sort of trauma that they faced in their past. They wouldn't feel fully comfortable, so they would prefer to date someone who is not that race. And I think those are all very valid reasons on why not to date someone. So then we can attribute this to, well, if dating in itself is discriminatory, and we can see that someone might not want to date someone based on their sexual orientation, that being if you were a gay man and you wouldn't date a straight man. Now, there are some people who do, obviously, but in general, you would exclude that person from your dating pool. And then we went even further and said that, well, there are even people who discriminate people based on race, and we do not find that to be discrimination, so why would we apply this standard when it comes to bi people? Now, I understand the conversation that some people would say that biphobia is much more shallow than that. There isn't any massive rooted reason why someone would not want to date a bi person other than the fact that they just don't like bi people. In of itself, I don't think that that is a good enough reason to call it biphobia, because biphobia, again, you would expect it to meet a certain standard that just doesn't exist for bi people. There are going to be people who express to you that they do not want to date bi people because they had a bad experience with a bi person, and you cannot say that that experience is wrong. For example, if someone said that they had a bad experience with someone who is a painter and they do not want to date painters anymore, then that would be fine also. Just because someone is excluding someone from their dating pool does not mean that they hate that person or that they would levy prejudice against that person other than their dating preferences. So I hope you understand my point with that, but I'm going to move on because I think that there is a bigger topic that we can talk about when we discuss biphobia. And the one that I wanted to get into is the fact that bi people are the victim of stereotypes.
I'm getting sick of your stereotypes. Be as sick as you want, just give me a goddamn baseline! God damn it.
Now, do I really think that these stereotypes are pervasive in our culture? I don't really think so. I think that most people understand what bi is and the fact that just because you're bi doesn't mean that you're promiscuous or that you can't choose, etc, etc. I think a lot of this is just humour, but I will dive into these stereotypes a little bit more. And let me make one thing clear. Just because I do not think that these stereotypes are pervasive in the culture doesn't mean that people don't have them, and doesn't mean that people cannot be the victim of these stereotypes. But the fact is that most things in life have a stereotype. If you fit into a certain category, there's going to be a stereotype that is affiliated with that. For example, people who are in bands are seen to be more promiscuous and more likely to cheat on you than people who are not in bands. Does that mean that there is discrimination on bands based on this standard? No, it doesn't. It just means that people like to label certain things, and bisexual unfortunately has stereotypes associated with it, like any other label. I don't think that this is prejudice, discrimination, or anything akin to the like. Does that mean that it's not hurtful? Of course it's hurtful.
It's like a knife in the heart. It's always like a knife. It always hurts every single time.
No one wants to hear that. And I think that there is a lot of internal shame that bi people do when they are in straight presenting relationships, because it feels like they're hiding a sense of their identity. People feel like they need to prove their identity or that their identity really isn't real. But what I would say to that is you need to be able to find the confidence to trust within yourself. You do not need to prove yourself to anyone else. I am in a straight presenting relationship. It doesn't mean that I'm any less bi or I'm any less attracted to women. And if I talk to someone who doesn't believe that I'm attracted to women or that I'm really bi, then that is on them, that is not on me. I know who I am personally. I know that I dated a woman for 4 years, so who are they to tell me who I am? And I think that internal confidence needs to come from you. Let me say something else. That is that I am a million different things before I am a bisexual woman. I am a painter, I am loving, I am caring. There are a million different characteristics that I would attribute that I think are interesting about me before I talk about my sexuality. And that's not me saying that my sexuality isn't a part of my identity or isn't important to me.
Do you know that? It's important to me that you know that.
I do think that my bisexuality is important to me, and there is a bunch of lived experience that I've had because I am a bisexual. But that doesn't mean that it is the most important thing, a part of my identity, and that I need to prove that to other people. I guess my main thing with this message is that I want to get through to my audience that you don't have to meet other people's standards. You can set those standards for yourself, and you can be proud of who you are, even when the world tells you that you're something different. You've got to stand strong in your internal sense of identity, because no one else is going to be able to provide you a sense of comfort, belonging, or personal growth aside from yourself. So yeah, I hope that made things clearer for you guys. If I missed anything, I'll cut it in here, but if not, then I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, like, comment, and subscribe. I know that I'm probably going to get a bit more hate on this one because it's a bit more controversial, but I feel like my arguments are based in logic and lived experience, and I know that people are going to listen to my arguments and not actually want to understand what I'm saying. People are going to want to just disagree with me or fight with me in the comments, and that's absolutely fine. But my target with this video is to reach the people who genuinely want to understand my point, whether they agree or disagree, and for people who maybe just want different opinions than, I guess, the most popular opinion, because I think that biphobia is a very interesting topic and it's something that I'm very interested in talking about, but I feel like there is a popular narrative and then there's an unpopular narrative, and I understand that I have the unpopular narrative, and maybe I'm wrong, and you guys can let me know if I'm wrong. I'm perfectly happy being wrong. Without further ado, I'll see you in the next one. I put videos out on Wednesdays, so if you enjoyed this video, please do subscribe. I do read the comments. I do have my roommate read out the comments just because my anxiety gets a little like, but I do read all of them and I appreciate you guys lots.